Welcome to the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast. I am your host, Dean Phillips, and the Precision Metal Forming Association is who is sponsoring our show. So I always appreciate them and their support of this show. Again, I'm Dean Phillips. I am the technical director for the Precision Metal Forming Association. With me today from Dieology, the science of stamping, I am fortunate enough to have with me Art Hedrick. Art is, of course, the president. Welcome, Art.
Hey, thanks for that wonderful introduction, Dean, and thank you for inviting me on this. It's truly a pleasure and very flattering that you are asking my opinion regarding, the future of sheet metal stamping and dies and kind of the future of the trade. So thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Absolutely, and we'd love to have such as yourself experts on that that can kind of give everybody kind of a full picture view of what's going on out there and why is this important. So right off the bat, I always ask our guests, what do you see coming over the next 5 years? The destiny of manufacturing, what is it?
Well, I think you're going to see um, training demands go up, but I also think that they're going to be more rigorous and more job specific. For example, I am a product of the traditional 4-year U.S. Department of Labor apprenticeship. I started my apprenticeship at a company located in Greenville, Michigan called Greenville Tool and Die, and I went through the typical 4-year local community college program. Now, I'm very proud to say that I finished my apprenticeship and it's certainly done me good. But at the same time, I can say to you with 100% confidence that a large portion of the things I had to learn in the world of academia, in other words, the local college, I never really applied at at the Greenville Tool and Die facility. It's nice to know, some of the things that regarding machining processes and some things regarding safety and first aid and all those good things. But most of the stuff that I use day to day, still today as a professional consultant, I learned from somebody else more experienced in the trade in the actual tool and die shop. And so, as nice as a traditional apprenticeship is, unfortunately, it's a lot of money and a lot of time training people for a lot of things that they may never use job specifically. Meaning, I don't want to say it's not doesn't have value in it, because hey, I'm an educator. Anything that you can teach me, whether I use it or not, I think it's fascinating and it adds value. So, I am an educator. I'm an advocate of education in any shape, way, or form. But today, companies do not have the time and the resources to be spending to send their people to a local community college for 4 years and pay for stuff that, quite honestly, they're just not going to use at their company, and the payback is not there, you know. And so I've seen a big focus on people bringing services in, like myself, to help expedite the training of this newer, younger group that's coming into their tool room and on their stamping floors. Keep in mind that, a lot of companies have lost a lot of talented people in the last 4 or 5 years. People, 40, 50, 60 years old have all retired. And unfortunately, they've taken years and years of that tribal knowledge home with them. And it left a big hole in the world of sheet metal die designers and stampers. And now they've got these new group of younger, less experienced individuals, and they want to bring them up to speed as quick as they can about their task that they need to do exclusively, you know. And sometimes, they want these people to be very diversified too. So that when they're not working in the tool room, they might be working in quality control, and they might be working even at a press or whatever it is. So in any case, no matter what the training is, it needs to be very job specific and not out of the scope of the task. And so, and people are trying to do that. They're bringing me into a company for 2 or 3 days to do training, and they want those guys to go out on the floor and take all of that training and apply it, bam, the very next day. And it unfortunately doesn't always happen that way, because we don't retain everything we learn in a conference. We're lucky to retain maybe 10-20% of it. So that's what I see: significant changes in the way we're focusing our training.
It's interesting. That's a fantastic point. I think that we're seeing more and more of that. Much like you, I came from a vocational school. That's where I started, and it has served me well. Now, when I went to college, of the things that I learned in college, I would say that I use less than 10%, maybe even lower than that, of how
Yeah.
much stuff I learned in college. I,
Yeah.
I started off in electrical at a vocational high school, learning residential electrical, motor controls, those kinds of things. And those I use more on a day-to-day basis than I do using stuff on microwave communications or uh, actually hand programming microprocessors or doing, because it's a microprocessor that's outdated and we don't use anymore. Some of the technology that we learn becomes kind of past its point of usefulness. Do you think that when we look at tool people today, when I say tool people, I want to kind of broaden it to people that are in tool and die across the board? Do you see more people becoming die assemblers as opposed to becoming uh, die makers?
Uh, Absolutely. In fact, that's a very good point, Dean. Um, it's interesting. I learned the trade, or started learning the history of the trade, from a gentleman by the name of Edwin Stoughton. Edwin Stoughton was in his 80s actually when I started working with him, and believe it or not, he is largely um, responsible for designing and engineering the very first progressive die. And so he shared his stories of how dies were built in his trade. And I'll share just a quick story to kind of show you, where we've been, and of course where we're at today. He told me when he was a young apprentice, they brought a brand new machine into the shop, and he said him and half of his colleagues stood around this machine in total awe of what it could possibly do. And he looked at me and he said, "Do you know what that machine was?" And I said, "I don't know, Ed." And he said, "It was a jig file." He said it was essentially a table with a file in the center of it that went up and down it real fast. And he said, you could take a block and, that you cut out of another block by drilling tiny little holes all the way around it, then taking a cold chisel and knocking that out. He said you could file that thing to a line in no time at all. Okay. Thinking that, and there was a time when all these guys probably stood around and went, my goodness, well, what are they going to think of next? Look at this crazy thing. And then, of course, then it turned to shapers, and then eventually, you know, uh, somebody designed a duplicating mill where you could make a model and the heads would, follow each other. Then it all turned into CNC with, the first CNC running off tape, tape with holes in it, and every once in a while it'd misread the tape, and well, the party began. But then they started going to floppy disk, and now today we've got high speed CNC machinery. We've had wire burn for years. We're going into 3D printing, even 3D printing of tool steel sections now. Advancements have been made in software, forming simulation software. One of the companies I used to work for purchased software when it first came out, and it would take 3 or 4 days to run one iteration of what you thought might work to get the results. And now it's a matter of minutes, literally, and you can run it on a laptop as opposed to a big bank of giant computers. So and even some of the software now, models up the dies already for you. We've got software now. Logo Press is a very popular one that does a lot of automatic part processing, ways of taking a flat sheet and turning it into a part. I'm in a trade where I hate to miss a day because I think I'm going to miss something, and I think if those are things I know about. What are the things I don't know about that are being worked on presently? So it's definitely changing. One other thing that I'd like to say I'm very happy about is I see the trade slowly, knock on wood here, slowly changing in the minds of humans from an art form to a science. I think people are finally realizing that the skilled trades are just as professional as any trade or any job where you might have to spend years in academia to get a certificate. Hollywood largely influences the way we perceive professional jobs. If you watch TV, if you're a fireman or the DA or all these TV shows with doctors and attorneys and all that stuff. Rarely do you see manufacturing on any of these shows, and especially stamping. I think the last stamping show I saw with stamping in it was the comedy Tommy Boy or whatever it was with
Right.
the brake, the brake company or whatever. But
Yep.
I'd like to believe that maybe individuals like myself have had an impact on that, trying to portray it as a professional career path. I think people are finally trying to say, wow, there's a place for this, and there's a lot to be known in order to do this trade. I love to invite high school counselors into one of my conferences and just listen to because their faces, they look confused about halfway through it, and they come up to me and say, gosh, I never knew there was so much to this whole tool and die trade. Wow, this is really something, because I think their perception of it originally was, it's some type of a factory job, and it's very task oriented. We can put on a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, the job description and what steps to take, but it's not that simple, of course. So hopefully it's changing. That's my goal anyway, is to change the perception a little bit.
And I think I agree with you. I think it is slowly changing and moving in that direction. I think people are realizing that every student isn't the same, and this path shouldn't be the same for every single student. That there has to be other professions and other things that people need to do in order to have a functioning society. You can't have, even if everyone aspires to be a doctor, if everybody was a doctor, that wouldn't be good either.
That's right. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think that the skill set that you need to have is different for different functions. And when you think about somebody who is skilled in tool and die, or somebody that is good at understanding machinery, that individual probably doesn't enjoy sitting at a desk for 24 hours or 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, sitting there taking a phone call and doing that. That's not what they want to do. They want to work with their hands. They want to be out and active doing things. I know that's how I feel. It drives me crazy to sit at a desk when I have to do it. It's just isn't in my nature to sit and do that. And I think that those people that we have to look at is say, what is it that the student is good at and enjoys doing, not just the path is the same for everybody. And that's a challenge that you're right that we still have to overcome. Where does technology fit in the future of what we're doing?
Oh, technology is extremely important. In order to expedite, for example, the design and building of the tool, having software, and there's many different formability packages. I'm not here to give a commercial, but some type of FEA forming simulation package, combined with with software is absolutely critical doggone it, I'm sorry here. I thought I turned this off. Is absolutely critical when trying to expedite the process for coming up and turning a flat piece of sheet metal into a finished part. before all this simulation took place, an engineer would sit down and say, I've designed the die. I think it's going to work, but I have no way of testing out whether it's going to work or not until the design gets turned into the die, and then it's going to be up to the tool makers to grind and beat and hack and change as needed until we get to a finished part. Where today, all of that's done in the virtual world of electronics. We design a virtual die up, we put in a virtual sheet material properties, we put it into a virtual press, and we see the virtual results. We can even see how much it's bringing back, where it's splitting and buckling and wrinkling and surface qualities. And we can even detect the force needed for cutting and forming, which helps us to choose a press. And that, of course, not only reduces tooling costs because we don't have all of that time changing the tool and sometimes, destroying it, trying to get it up to speed. But it reduces tooling costs and makes for a much better tool. And just like any software, there's been huge advances, when they first came out with forming simulation software, it would take 2 or 3 days to run one iteration. And, today it's a matter of 5 or 10 minutes on a laptop. So,
Yeah.
And even the software operation has gotten a little bit easier, kind of point and click sort of stuff, as opposed to, sitting down and putting in the algorithm or whatever, the first version you had to do there. So
yeah, that's a great point. I think that's one of the areas that people don't realize is the aspect of how user friendly the tools that we have in our industry has become. And frankly, it's more conducive to the younger generation in many cases because things are more uh, graphical user interfaces, and they are more designed to drag and drop and less of you need to sit down and write out formulas. And because of that, I think it has made the field more accessible for people.
right.
So do you think that that's a trend that you're seeing in more other areas?
I think so. In fact, for example, here, I'm going to share just a very recent, I mean, is early, or is yesterday, how to say yesterday. Okay. Last week, let me say I was at a company out in Nebraska, I won't give names, doing some training for their tooling group. Okay. And we went through all sorts of different things in cutting theory and die setup and all sorts of stuff. And they're good guys, really appreciated the training. And I said to them in the conference, I said, guys, it's important to understand the physics behind all of these things that take place within this tool and understand all the interactivity. Keep in mind, there's 1,000 variables that could lead you to the solution. And it might be a combination of 2 or 3 variables. It's up to you through understanding to be able to calculate all of the variables and try to figure out to the best of your ability which one or which combination of several are going to be the root cause for this failure. Keep in mind, though, there is no app. There's no app out there on your phone that says how to do this and how do I design and how do I troubleshoot. And I left it at that. Yesterday, I got an email from one of the individuals from the conference thanking me for the content. And he said he has a brother that does nothing but design and engineer apps. And so he was pretty adamant about the fact that he believes, and he was a sharp tool and die guy, he believes that they can create an app that you can use on your phone to help troubleshoot some of the more common die problems. It's not going to troubleshoot every formability issue that you have, but some of the most common problems maybe with setting up a die and getting it fed smoothly, or maybe simple problems with bending or some basic cutting burr issues or whatever it might be. It's not going to put me out of business by any means, but and I thought to myself, I'm not enough of a tech expert to be able to tell you if it can be done, but some of the stuff I've seen being done on a computer today boggles my mind. So the young fella might be right, and hey, maybe there'll be a dye troubleshooting app out there in the future. I know he asked me to try to help him to develop it, and I told him, well, hey, I'll help you when I can as time permits. But
Mhm.
yeah, that's kind of interesting.
That's very exciting. I would like to see that come around because I do see it from the standpoint of how do we get there? If you think about it from what is it we're looking at? Now, one of the thing that's a little difficult, I think you can get in close and zoom in and you can use like these microscope attachments to your phones and to your tablets to get in close on the side of it to see if there's more burr and to see where the fracture zone is on a piece of material. You could see a lot of those things. You could see what burnishing is, and you could see if it has a double cut at the top and the bottom. You could see those things, and then it may not necessarily say, "Well, look in station 2 and
Right, right,
and look at this
right.
punch," but it would say, "Hey, this is happening because of this." And at least it would narrow it down for you in a few different options, and I think even that could be very beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
that's
I
really exciting.
that is exciting. And I used to be kind of a skeptic about what could and couldn't be done, but today a lot of that skepticism is gone. I mean, I don't mean to get off on a complete tangent here, but about a year and a half ago, I had a complete hip replacement, an outpatient, and I was
Mhm.
walking. I mean, I didn't even have to stay in the hospital, and
Right.
I mean, I'm walking the same day. And to me, that is just mind-boggling that they can, you know, almost take your leg off and put it back on, and put new bones in, and hammer them and pound them and whatever heaven's sakes they do, and make you walk and then send you home. And
Yeah.
that is a miracle. And I'm thinking, well, when somebody says to me, I'm going to make a dye troubleshooting app, I'm going to go, okay, let's do it. Let's see
I
what
like
happens.
it. I like
You know,
that. So as a final thing we always do, uh, we always ask, what is first of all, why are you involved with the Precision Metal Forming Association?
well, it's tied to my um what I'll say is my purpose as a human being. Okay. People ask me, what it is your main goal having your own company and doing training. And one might think, well, it's to make a decent living while, providing a service that is needed. But my goal is a little bit deeper than that. It's to touch as many people as I can possibly touch in a positive way and share with them the things that I've had the blessing of learning from other individuals. I've learned so much from so many people, some older, some younger. Everywhere I go as a consultant, I learn and I see something new, and it's truly fascinating. And I know that I wouldn't be where I'm at right now if it hadn't been for individuals who truly cared about helping me to become successful. And so I want to share the things that I've had the blessing of learning with as many people as I can, and maybe give them some information, make them feel good about who they are and what they do, make them realize that this is not just a simple trade, but it is a professional career path. Give them the information that they need so that not only they can be successful and provide for their families, but teach them to share their information with other people so that my impact expands even more. My goal is to help as many people as I possibly can and make a difference in their lives. That's why I joined PMA, because I can reach out to more people and get more involved and help some of these companies grow. To me, there's nothing more satisfying than to meet a kid and he's 18 years old, and then I've been in the trade for 47 years, and then go back 25 years later and see him again. And, the kid's a plant manager in a stamping die shop. And I just smile from ear to ear. And because he comes up to me and says, man, I remember you 20 years ago. And boy, you sure made an impact on me. Man, that to me is like that. Forget Disney World. That's the best thing for me right there.
Yep.
So,
No.
that's my goal. That's why I'm with PMA.
Thank you so much, and we appreciate you, Art. Hey, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, my website is dieology.com. If you read Metal Forming magazine, I write the Science of Forming column in there. Used to be old Stu Keeler's column until unfortunately he passed away. And so if you just Google Dieology or put my name in, you'll see hundreds of articles written for other magazines and for PMA's Metal Forming. You can get a hold of me, I'm sure.
Great. Well, we really appreciate you, Art. Thank you so much for being here today.
All right.
If anybody needs anything as far as die training, please reach out to us and we can get you in touch with Art, at pma.org or any of our partners here that you, of course, see. We do appreciate everybody's support. Thank you for watching the show or listening to it, depending on what form you're on. We appreciate you. Go out and make it a great day.
All right. Hey, thanks, Dean. I appreciate it.